Mali suspends teaching of French Revolution from its schools. They say instead they are going to focus their own history that glorify the Malian history. Now, this was announced, and in fact, the directive has been signed and circulated to different regions in Mali. This is an interesting turn of event. So what they have done is they have announced that specifically grade 9 students will no longer study the French Revolution or French history. The government removed the 1789 French Revolution lesson from the school curriculum with immediate effect. This is a step towards decolonizing education and foster cultural sovereignty. The aim is to align the curriculum more closely with Malian and African history, culture, and national identity instead of a colonial era European topics. There is an emphasis on local realities. The move is part of Mali's broader effort to decolonize education and foster a sense of cultural and intellectual sovereignty by teaching about African heroes, traditions, and pre-colonial history, such as the ancient empires of Mali, like Timbuktu, Ghana, and Songhai. The directive signed by Boubacar Dembélé, Secretary General of Ministry, was sent to all regional education offices. This directive was signed on 9 of October, and the announcement was confirmed as an official government action by the Ministry of National Education of Mali. And also, the president. Now, this has caused a lot of reactions, saying some. First of all, let me just emphasize before I forget, the aim is to align the curriculum more closely with Malian and African history, culture, and national identity instead of a colonial era, European topics. And also, there was a part, this move is part of Mali's broader effort to decolonize education and foster a sense of cultural and intellectual sovereignty by teaching about African heroes, traditions, and pre-colonial history, such as the ancient empires of Mali, Ghana, and Songhai. Now, this is really important because if you ask many people, forget the Europeans or the Western people, because that is a deliberate thing that they get from school, but our own people in Africa, because the whole academic system is copied from their colonial masters, including Ethiopia, by the way. Now they start to decolonize it because recently, actually this morning, I read that Ge'ez, which is the mother tongue of the native language, Amharic, the national language, Amharic, is going to be taught in school. This is a good move. This is a decolonization of education. But even Ethiopia has this copied curriculum from the West. So this way you cannot really teach your own people. And this is actually forced. Some of the funds, the loans that we are getting from the West comes with their entails, with their tail, that they don't tell you what happened behind the door when they negotiate some kind of support with these governments. There are things that are dumped upon us, which our governments are not telling us. So most of this is all to say, most Africans, they think that their history actually starts from slavery. Their history starts from colonization. They're not aware that there were kingdoms and kingdoms in Africa, that there were empires, that their country has existed historically before Europe has started to live as a human being. I mean, or let's say that as this expression goes, when most of the Europeans were living in caves, Africans have had their own kingdoms and queendoms, okay, and their own civilization as well. So to teach that pre-colonial era, to teach that pre-slavery time, it's really important. There is a lot that it does to the child's psychology, you know, when they stand on the stage of the world, because this kind of things makes them, I know that for a fact, there are African people who come for a scholarship to Europe, and they don't see themselves as they are enough, or they belittle themselves because of all the education that they have been immersed in, you know, of this Western copied curriculum. So this is really important. It's a good step. I'm not saying, I don't think I would support that, okay, the French Revolution should not be taught at all by learning what happened on each part of the world. There's something that we can pick for our own, but it does not mean necessary, because, for example, why am I against the French Revolution? Because our people are taught in school, this is the French Revolution, because that value of fraternity, equality, and there's a third one, liberty. I think these three values are the one that made, you know, the anti-colonial movement in Africa. No, that's a lie, because these values, these principles have existed long before colonization in Africa. As we say, there were civilizations, there were kingdoms, and they have their own principles and values. This is not something that they learned, that Africans have learned, or our ancestors. They existed much thousands of years before the French Revolution. The French Revolution, compared to the African history, was just like yesterday, okay? So was it in 1769, if I'm not mistaken? But around that time. So there are some, I know, because I read some of the comments and from the articles where this is published, and some are saying, oh, this is a world history, or isn't it the one that actually this was a reason that the anti-colonial movement in Africa started? No, it is not. In fact, the French have used this for their own, although it contradicts, but they used it for their own colonization system in Africa and anywhere else in the world. Now, why not teaching, you know, what happened in Africa, our own revolution? For example, there are African revolutions that brought Pan-African leaders, including the Ghanaian the Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, its independence movement led by Kwame Nkrumah. That was a revolution. What about the Zanzibar revolution, which led to the overthrow of the Sultanate? And there are more also other recent events. Why not also teaching what happened now? What happened in Burkina Faso? What happened in Mali itself? What happened in Burkina Faso? Those Sahel states, these are like, it happened all, and it's also happening now. It's an event in progress in the past 3 years. But if they don't teach it to their people, I am very sure now that if Assimi Goïta, Colonel Assimi Goïta, the president of Mali, tomorrow or in the near future is not there anymore, the president that comes or the leader that comes after will not put it in place to teach their own revolution, because what the Western media might tell you, this is a coup d'etat, okay? What happened in these three countries, because it's all military government. But what happened is a revolution. People demanded for this change, and it's a people-supported movement. So these are the things that we can teach our own people. As if we don't teach it, nobody is going to do it for us. So as a saying goes, a child without his own history is like a tree without its roots, which is a saying popularized by Marcus Garvey. And I also live by the saying of Frederick Douglass, who so much advocates to teach the youth in Africa. I mean, most of the time, if I am invited as a panelist in any conference, these are the things I say at the end. It might sound a cliche, but if we focus on our youth, on our academic system, and teach the real history of Africa, then me and my colleagues, my friends, do not need to do anything over social media to bring this Pan-African thought, or to revive this Pan-African movement, because if you teach a child, and if he or she grow up with that sense of pride of being an African, that it is enough being an African, and how his ancestors or her ancestors were civilized, and in fact traveling the world and sharing their knowledge and civilization to the rest of the world, will mean a lot in their psychology and decolonizing education. So if we invest on that for, let's say, 2 decades, then Africa will just be fine. Will just be fine, really, because you have the whole generation that's growing up, with that sense of pride and being taught what he or she needs to be taught. So this is my take on the Malian government banning French Revolution from their academic system. But let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this move by the Malian government? Thank you again for tuning in. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Give it a like if you find it informative enough, and share the video with others. That was it for now. Bye-bye.